Hello, YouTube. I am going to cut right to the chase. This is my second review, and I'm going to be reviewing a book that we're well aware of. If you haven't read it, I don't know where you've been, or if you haven't at least heard of it. You may not have read it, may not be up your alley. Hey, that's perfectly fine. But I felt like it was appropriate, seeing as how there was a huge announcement that was made today in relation to the book. And of course, the book that I'm talking about is 50 Shades of Grey. I do own the trilogy, all 3 books. I happen to really love this book for numerous reasons. I'm not going to go too much in detail as to what the book is about. Like I said, either you have been under a rock and you've never heard of it, or I don't know, maybe you just didn't decide to read it, and that's cool. I did. A friend of mine, shout out to Les, he introduced me to it a couple of years ago, and I jumped on it, and I enjoyed it for what it was. Hear me when I say I enjoyed it for what it was. I am not trying to make 50 Shades of Grey into the next literary masterpiece, because we all know, if you've read it, it is far from it. But for what it was, I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the storyline. I enjoyed the characters. There was not as much character development as some people would have liked. It was okay for me. In terms of character development, I'll give it a 5 or 6. Wasn't the best. I've definitely seen worse. I think a lot of people take issue with this book for, of course, the content. It brought a very taboo subject into the mainstream, which is the BDSM community. A lot of people within that community feel some kind of way about this book. As a card-carrying and collared submissive, I didn't feel any kind of way about the book. It does not send a bad message, but I've always been of the mindset that adults make decisions for themselves. So if you are an adult and you have read this book or this series and you've decided that you would like to try out or step your foot into the BDSM community, hey, more power to you. I will say this, it's not for everybody. This book is not a guideline to how the community works or how relationships work. Within the community, a relationship is what you make it, no matter what. So understand that. And do not be silly, because I hear a lot of people complaining, saying, oh, this is a gateway to get people hurt. Seriously, we're all adults. Make good adult decisions. If someone tells you something that you're not comfortable with, just say no. If you go along with it and you don't like it, you're an idiot and you deserve what you get. Point blank, period. The book goes through a lot of different changes, and the writer, E.L. James, I'm going to be kind and say that it was compelling. The storyline kept me interested. For those who are not familiar with the storyline, I'll give you a basic rundown. It's a Cinderella story. Little girl, it's kind of unbelievable. A lot of the plot points in the book. She's in this bubble. Like, she literally has never been experienced, or she's never stepped outside of her bubble. Period. She has no life experience whatsoever. And then she meets this man who has a little too much life experience. And they try to traverse a relationship. And it has its ups, it has its downs, and it definitely has its drawbacks. But for the most part, they seem to make a go of it, because for whatever inexplicable reason, they can't seem to be without each other. So they do the best they can. And that's with any book and with any real relationship. As I said, I'm not going to get too much in depth in the actual story. If you never read it, then you didn't want to. That's just the basis of it. You've at least heard of it. I know that there are people who attempted to read it and they gave up because it wasn't for them. I get it. The writing is terrible. It is not Shakespeare. the inner monologue and the inner dialogue that the female character has, Anastasia Steele, with her inner goddess, is enough to drive anyone insane. I get it. I wasn't a fan of it. I'm actually not a fan of hers in general. I'm not a fan of this character. I feel like she is the epitome of what's wrong with women, or what men say is wrong with women. She's indecisive, she's judgmental, she jumps to conclusions, and she's closed-minded. She does not, but she's fickle, and she's wishy-washy, and she's flighty, and that is not a good combination. And she's very stuck in the fact that the way she sees things, which is through a very inexperienced eye, is right, because for whatever reason we're supposed to believe that she's just perfect, and she's far from it. She's actually pretty messed up herself, very insecure, very unsure, self-doubt, body issues, esteem issues, a lot going on. And instead of her trying to work on those things, she seems to take great pleasure in pointing out the shortcomings of our male lead, Christian Grey, billionaire, beyond mega sexy, and under 30. Yeah, that doesn't really happen. So ladies, don't go out there looking for your rich billionaire BDSM god. He does not exist. This is a book. He is a fictional character. Don't get caught up. But part of the reason why I did this review today is because it was just announced today that there's going to be a 4th book in the trilogy. And I was really pissed off about this for a lot of reasons. The first, what the hell did you wait so long for? The book has been out for years. The movie just came out this year, and you have 2 more movies in the making. What did we wait all this time for a 4th book? And the selling point of this 4th book is that it's supposed to be from Christian's perspective. I don't care at this point. When I first finished the book and I read the end of 50 Shades Freed, and I got the little glimpse into Christian Grey's perspective, it was interesting. And I actually was really upset because I was like, why couldn't the entire book have been told from this perspective? He seems like he has a lot more common sense than she does. But it wasn't. And I wasn't going to be one of those people that pushed and bitched and moaned about why. There are enough books and enough series that finish off that way, with a book from the male perspective, that I don't need to harp on this one. But apparently now we're all supposed to jump for joy and jump for glee that E.L. James has deemed it appropriate, and that after all this time, to write an additional book from Christian Grey's perspective. And I just don't get it. And maybe I get it a little too well, that this is, to me, it seems like a grab for more money. Why? People don't want it that badly. Like, if you do, you're a little too wrapped up in this series. If you're that hungry for a book from Christian Grey's perspective, you're basically going to be reading the entire series from his perspective. So you're going to read it again. What is she going to do? Change 1 or 2 words, change the perspective from his to hers, but basically write the exact same scenes? I'm not paying money for that. I'm not getting that wrapped up, and I feel like it's basically a gag to get more money out of me. I don't know whose idea this was, but it was a bad one. I'm not happy. I'm not pleased. I'm not excited about this. I feel like you're trying to rape me for the few dollars that I make. You've made enough money off of this series. Why couldn't you have stepped out of the box and wrote something different? Tried to expand on your audience. Done something new, but from the male perspective. I would have been geeked for that. I would have been down for that. But this, I'm not happy. I'm not pleased. 50 Shades of Grey was a good book. I will go on the ledge and I will put my reputation on the market to say 50 Shades of Grey was a good book. It told a good story. And it kept you compelled. I was interested in what happened with these characters. Now, was it the greatest literary masterpiece known to man? Hell no. Absolutely not. It didn't hardly make sense half the time. I was like, wait, what? Who talks like this? And to be honest, I went to see the movie. The book didn't translate well into the movie. It just didn't. I felt like, wow, I'm really glad I read the book because I didn't feel anything while watching that movie. It didn't do anything for me. It left so much out. And I get it. It's a dirty book. It's really dirty. Well, no, let me backtrack because I've read way worse. But it's a dirty book. It's got its dirty points. But of course, all of that could not be put into film. All of this could not be shown on the big screen. I get it. But it didn't convey to me. Maybe you read the book and you went to see the movie and you loved it. Hey, I'm not knocking you. I didn't love the movie. I didn't hate the movie. It was okay. It's just like the book. Everything about this book and this series is just okay. It's not, oh my God, I'm dying good. And it's not, ugh, this is the worst thing I've ever read in the history of man. Horrible. For those people who are judgmental and say that it is that horrible, okay, you don't like it. What I don't care for about people who don't like this series is that you attack those who do. You attack their intelligence. You attack their personality and their moral stand ground. For whatever reason you don't like this series, that's your personal choice. You may feel like it's a dirty book and it corrupts people. You may feel like it was just poorly written. You may feel like it's a bad influence on the BDSM community and it sheds a horrible light on us. All of that is, you're well within your right to feel that way. But don't attack the people who do like it. I am a highly intelligent, highly articulate young lady, and I like this book. I wasn't trying to make it anything it wasn't. I wasn't trying to turn it into a guidebook on how to run a BDSM relationship. I wasn't trying to turn it into Shakespeare. I wasn't trying to compare it to anything else I've ever read or ever went through. I just read the book and enjoyed it for what it was. It's okay. And that's it. It's not the second coming of Satan. It doesn't influence people to go get whips and chains and stick something up their lover's butt and go to the hospital. If that has happened to you as a result of reading this book, I feel no sympathy for you whatsoever. I'm so sorry. I just don't. In terms of book 4, Grey, it will stay on the book stands. It will stay on the record stands. It will stay there when it comes to me. I will not be purchasing it. I will not be spending the time. I just won't. I'm done with 50 Shades of Grey. I was done with 50 Shades of Grey when I read the book. I was enthused with it because I thought it was a really good story. And it gets a little convoluted towards the end. I know it really does, but it wrapped up. I would have preferred a not so succinct ending. I would have preferred that they did not have the white picket fence and all of that good stuff. Like, I would have preferred for it to have a little bit of a more edge to the ending, but I didn't write the book. I'm just reviewing it. But I'm not here for Grey. I don't see it for Grey. I'm not buying Grey. I'm not with it. I'm over this series. It's a little overhyped at this point. I can see people, I can definitely understand people getting sick of it. It's definitely been blown way out of proportion for just an okay book. But if nothing else, I like the book because it gets people reading. And I am an advocate of people reading, whether it's a terrible book, whether it's a comic book, whether it's a 500-year-old epic series. Whatever you read, I'm all for it. Keep reading, keep loving books, 50 Shades of Grey, or whatever else you're into. As for me, I've laid my opinion out on this series, on this review, on this subject, on the movie, on the new book, and I'm done with it. So I'm just gonna say deuces.